Instructor Vex stood at the entrance of Training Hall Omega, his three eyes scanning the incoming batch of cadets with the cold precision of a predator evaluating prey. 30 years. 30 years of turning soft, idealistic younglings into hardened soldiers. 30 years of breaking spirits, rebuilding discipline, and forging the Galactic Military Academy's finest warriors. His success rate was flawless. 100%. Every single recruit who entered his program either graduated as a model soldier or washed out completely. There was no middle ground, not under his watch. The morning light of Cavalia Prime filtered through the transparent aluminum dome overhead, casting long shadows across the polished metallic floor. Vex's scales, a deep violet that darkened with age, caught the light as he shifted his weight. His reputation preceded him. The new cadets entering the hall moved with visible anxiety, their various appendages, tentacles, and limbs trembling slightly. Good. Fear was the foundation. Respect came later. Form ranks. His voice boomed across the chamber, amplified by the acoustic design of the facility. The cadets scrambled into position, creating 5 neat rows of 6. Well, mostly neat. A few of the younger ones still struggled with the concept of straight lines. That would change. Everything changed under his instruction. Vex began his slow walk down the first row, his taloned feet clicking rhythmically against the floor. Each step was calculated, each pause deliberate. He stopped in front of Torvak, a hulking Brendian whose armored exoskeleton made him nearly twice the size of Vex himself. The young male's confidence was palpable. Vex could practically smell the arrogance. "You think your size matters here?" Vex asked, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Torvak's mandibles clicked nervously. "No, Instructor." "Correct. Your size means nothing. Your strength means nothing. Your species advantages mean nothing. Here you are all equally worthless until I decide otherwise." He moved on, leaving Torvak to process the words. The second row contained Bryn, an insectoid from the hive colonies. Their compound eyes tracked Vex's movement with the unsettling stillness of their kind. Next to Bryn stood Eula, a sleek reptilian whose green scales shimmered under the dome light. Both maintained rigid postures. Both had clearly heard the stories. Vex continued his inspection, noting everything: weak points, overconfidence, hidden fear. He'd seen thousands of recruits, and they all followed patterns. The big ones relied on physical strength. The small ones tried to compensate with speed or intelligence. The hive mind struggled with individual decision-making. The telepaths thought they had an advantage until they learned his species was naturally resistant to mental intrusion. Then he saw her. Row 4, third position from the left. A human female, standing at average height for her species, with dark hair pulled back in a simple tail. Her identification badge read Kira in standard galactic script. She stood at attention like the others, but something about her posture was different. Not defiant exactly. More like relaxed. No, that wasn't quite right either. Comfortable. That was the word. She looked comfortable. Vex's middle eye narrowed. He'd trained exactly 3 humans in his entire career. All males, all washouts. Humans were a newer addition to the galactic community, their planet only having achieved faster-than-light travel 40 standard years ago. They were enthusiastic but fragile, emotionally unstable, prone to irrational decision-making. He'd read the basic files: Earth, Class G planet, nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere, standard gravity, nothing remarkable. He stopped directly in front of Kira. Up close, he could see the telltale signs of human physiology. the strange forward-facing eyes that indicated a pursuit predator evolutionary path, the exposed skin, vulnerable and unarmored, the simple clothing that offered no protection whatsoever. Fragile. Definitely fragile. Human, he stated flatly. Yes, Instructor? Kira replied. Her voice was steady and no tremor. Interesting. Your species has a poor track record in this program. So, I've heard, Instructor. Vex waited for more, an excuse, a promise to do better, something. But Kira simply maintained eye contact, her expression neutral. Not challenging, not submissive, just present. He moved on, completing his inspection. Once finished, he returned to the front of the formation and activated the wall display behind him. Text and images filled the screen, showing various training scenarios and statistics. Welcome to Hell Week, Vex began, using the human term he'd picked up years ago. It was dramatic, and drama helped set the proper tone. For the next 7 days, you will be pushed beyond every limit you think you have. Sleep will be a luxury. Comfort will be a distant memory. Pain will be your constant companion. Approximately 40% of you will quit before day 3. Another 30% will be medically withdrawn by day 5. The remaining 30% will graduate to standard training. These numbers have held consistent for 3 decades. He let that sink in. Several cadets shifted nervously. Perfect. We begin with the compliance protocol. This is a neural feedback system designed to teach the most important lesson any soldier must learn. Obedience. Immediate, unquestioning obedience. When your commanding officer gives an order in combat, you execute. You do not debate. You do not hesitate. You comply. This system will help your body understand that concept on a cellular level. Vex gestured to the left wall, where a series of pods emerged from hidden panels. Each pod was designed to interface with the neural systems of multiple species types. The technology was old, but effective. Painfully effective. You will each enter a pod. The system will establish a baseline connection to your nervous system. Then it will issue simple commands. Stand, sit, raise your right appendage, lower it. The commands are trivial. However, if you hesitate, if you delay even a fraction of a second, you will receive corrective feedback. The feedback will increase in intensity with each failure. You will learn quickly or you will suffer. Questions? Silence. Good. Torvak, you're first. The large Brendian approached the pod with obvious reluctance. His earlier confidence had evaporated. He stepped inside, and the pod sealed around him. Through the transparent front panel, Vex and the other cadets could see everything. The system initialized. Green lights. Connection established. The first command must have been issued because Torvak's right arm lifted immediately, then lowered, then his left. Good response time. Then came the first failure. Torvak's entire body went rigid, his mandibles spreading in a silent scream. The feedback lasted only 2 seconds, but when it ended, the massive warrior was breathing hard, his exoskeleton glistening with stress fluids. Acceptable, Vex announced. Next. Bryn. One by one, the cadets cycled through. Each one struggled, each one learned, each one emerged from the pod, shaken but educated. Eula actually vomited after her session, her reptilian biology rejecting the neural stress. Fen, one of the assistant instructors observing from the upper gallery, nodded approvingly. The system was working as designed. Finally, only one cadet remained. Kira stepped forward without being called, moving to the pod with that same comfortable posture. She stepped inside. The pod sealed. Connection established. Vex watched carefully, his three eyes focused on every micro-expression. The first commands went smoothly. Arms up, arms down, turn left, turn right. Her response time was actually excellent, better than average. Then came the inevitable delay. Perhaps she was too confident. Perhaps she was distracted. It didn't matter. The system registered the failure and delivered corrective feedback. And Kira laughed. Not a small chuckle, not a nervous giggle. A full, genuine laugh that echoed through the training hall, even from inside the pod. Her shoulders shook, her eyes squeezed shut. Her mouth opened in unmistakable mirth. Vex's scales went rigid. In 30 years, he had never, not once, seen this reaction. Pain was pain. Every species in the galaxy understood pain. You didn't laugh at pain. You couldn't laugh at pain. The feedback cycle completed. Kira wiped her eyes, still grinning, and resumed the exercise. Another delay, another feedback pulse, another laugh, this one even louder. Something cold settled in Vex's chest, something he hadn't felt in decades. Uncertainty. The other cadets stared, their various faces showing confusion, horror, and dawning fascination. Their unbreakable instructor had promised them that the system was absolute, that pain was the universal teacher. But the human was laughing. The human was actually enjoying this. When the pod finally opened and Kira stepped out, she was still smiling. "That was wild," she said, stretching her arms above her head. "Kinda tingly. Does it get more intense?" Vex's perfect record, his flawless reputation, his entire understanding of training psychology, all of it suddenly felt like it was built on sand. And the tide was coming in. "Dismissed," he managed, his voice rougher than intended. "All of you. Return at dawn." As the cadets filed out, chattering nervously among themselves, Vex stood alone in the training hall. He pulled up Kira's file on his personal display, actually reading it this time. Really reading it. Earth. Class 12 Deathworld. Extreme environmental hazards. Hostile megafauna. Atmospheric electricity storms. Seismic instability. Viral and bacterial evolution rates classified as apocalyptic. Native population survival mechanisms include excessive pain tolerance, rapid healing, psychological resilience bordering on. And he read this part twice. Irrational optimism under duress. There was a warning flag at the bottom of the file. Red text. Recommend specialized training protocols for human recruits. Standard discipline methods may prove ineffective or counterproductive. He'd never even scrolled down far enough to see it. Vex closed the file and looked at the empty pods. Tomorrow, he decided, he would increase the intensity. Show this human that laughing was premature. He was Instructor Vex. He had broken recruits from 63 different species. He would break this one too. He had to. Dawn came too quickly. Vex had barely recharged, his mind cycling through strategies all night. He'd consulted the Academy database, reviewed neural feedback parameters, and convinced himself that yesterday was a fluke, an anomaly. Today would be different. The cadets assembled in the training hall, looking exhausted. Perfect. Sleep deprivation was part of the design. Kira, however, bounced on her heels like she'd just woken from a full rest cycle. She even waved at Bryn, who responded with a confused antenna twitch. "Today we continue compliance protocol," Vex announced, his voice harder than yesterday. Yesterday was the introduction, the baseline. Today we increase difficulty. Torvak, you're first again. The Brendian's confidence had completely evaporated. He approached the pod like it was an execution chamber. The session began, and within minutes, Torvak was trembling, his massive frame shaking from the intensified feedback. When he emerged, He could barely stand. 2 sessions. That's all it took. The other cadets followed. Eula refused to enter the pod until Vex made it a direct order. Bryn lasted slightly longer, but emerged with their exoskeleton cracked from stress. Even Fen, watching from above, looked uncomfortable. Kira, your turn. She practically skipped to the pod. That comfortable posture again, that relaxed demeanor. It set Vex's scales on edge. The pod sealed. Connection established. Vex personally overrode the intensity settings, pushing them to triple yesterday's levels. Levels that should make her pass out. The commands began. Stand, sit, raise arms, turn. The first feedback pulse hit. Kira jerked, her eyes widening. Then she burst into laughter again, but this time she also started talking. Oh, okay, that's better. Yesterday was like, I don't know, static electricity. This is more like when I touched the electric fence at my uncle's farm. She was addressing the pod's interior camera, speaking between giggles. You ever been shocked by a fence? It's supposed to keep the livestock in, but us kids would dare each other to grab it. Good times. Vex felt something crack inside his chest, not physical, something deeper. He increased the intensity again. Quadruple, quintuple. The system flashed warnings about biological safety limits. Kira's laughter got louder. Tears streamed down her face. Woo! Now we're cooking. This is like that time I got caught in a riptide off the Australian coast. Same kind of full-body tingly thing. Almost drowned that day. Almost. The other cadets watched in absolute silence. Their instructor, their feared, unstoppable instructor, was losing. They could see it in the way his scales had shifted from violet to almost black. In the way his hands trembled over the controls. In the way his 3 eyes stared unblinking at the pod. This is impossible, Vex muttered. He activated atmospheric pressure controls, gravity multipliers, temperature extremes. The pod became a combination of every unpleasant physical stimulus the Academy possessed. Kira kept talking. Oh, gravity shift. Nice. My little brother and I used to spin on this playground thing until we threw up. Same feeling. Hey, is there supposed to be frost forming in here? Because there's definitely frost. Pretty. Fen descended from the observation gallery. Vex, stop this. You're going to kill her. She's laughing, Fen. She's actually enjoying this. Then you've already lost. End the session. But Vex couldn't, wouldn't. His entire identity was crumbling. 30 years of certainty, gone. He accessed restricted protocols, military-grade systems designed for interrogating enemy combatants. Illegal in training scenarios. He didn't care anymore. The pod's hum changed pitch, became dangerous. Kira's laughter finally paused. For one glorious moment, Vex thought he'd won. Then she spoke, her voice cheerful despite everything. Hey, everyone out there? This is honestly the most fun I've had since basic training back home. You should see what Earth instructors do. They make us run until we collapse, then yell at us for collapsing. It's great. Something inside Vex broke completely. Word spread through the Academy like wildfire. By the 3rd hour of the session, instructors from every department crowded the observation gallery. They whispered in a dozen different languages, their various appendages gesturing at the spectacle below. Vex, the legendary Vex, was unraveling in real time. Administrator Thel arrived, his elongated frame moving with authority through the gathered crowd. His silver skin reflected the harsh training lights as he assessed the situation. Instructor Vex, status report. Vex didn't turn. His eyes remained locked on the pod where Kira continued her cheerful commentary. Compliance protocol. Standard procedure. For 8 hours? Thel's voice carried dangerous undertones. I'm reading system logs that show you've accessed restricted military protocols. Explain. The human. She won't. She refuses to. Vex's voice had lost its commanding edge. Now it sounded hollow. Desperate. Inside the pod, Kira was giving advice to the other cadets who were pressed against the viewing panel. Bryn, hey, when he puts you back in tomorrow, just remember to breathe deep. Oxygen helps. And Eula, seriously, you're doing great. This stuff builds character. She's treating torture like a recreational activity, Vex continued, his voice rising. It's not possible. Pain is universal. Suffering is universal. Every biological creature responds to negative stimulus. Every single one. Thel moved closer, his voice dropping. Except you didn't read her species file, did you? The actual detailed analysis. Just the summary page. I've trained 3 humans before. Males, from colony worlds. She's from Earth itself. Do you understand what that means? Vex finally looked away from the pod. A Class 12 Deathworld, I know. Do you? Really? Thel activated a holographic display. Images of Earth filled the air. Massive storms that could level cities. Predators with teeth longer than Vex's arm. Volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, tsunamis. Diseases that rewrote genetic code. Humans evolved on a planet actively trying to kill them. Every single day. A child's birthday party on Earth is more dangerous than advanced combat training for most species. Their pain tolerance isn't just high, it's absurd. And their psychology? He pulled up graphs showing human neurological responses. They laugh at danger. They developed humor as a coping mechanism for constant mortal peril. You're not breaking her. You're entertaining her. The words hit Vex like physical blows. Around them, the other instructors shifted uncomfortably. Several were taking notes. Vex's failure would be studied, analyzed, taught as a cautionary tale. Shut it down, Thel ordered. No. Vex turned back to the controls. I just need to find the right combination, the right intensity. Everyone breaks, everyone. Instructor, that's an order. She's one recruit, one fragile, small, unarmored human. I've broken Vendorian war chiefs. I've broken hive queens. I've broken telepaths who could read my thoughts. I will break this human. Kira's voice echoed through the hall speakers. Hey, Instructor Vex? I'm getting kind of hungry. Is there a lunch break? Because I could really go for something with protein. Oh, and water. Definitely need water. Hydration is important during exercise. Laughter rippled through the observation gallery. Quiet at first, then growing. The instructors were laughing. At him. At the great Instructor Vex, reduced to this. His hand slammed against the emergency shutdown. The pod opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Kira stepped out, stretching and rolling her shoulders. She looked tired, sure. Her hair was messy. Her uniform was soaked with sweat. But she was standing, smiling, whole. Vex collapsed into his command chair, his 3 eyes staring at nothing. Torvak approached Kira cautiously. How? How are you still? Still what? Awake? Kira laughed, that same easy laugh that had started this whole nightmare. Oh, buddy, you should try Earth Summer Camp. Now that's intense. Vex heard nothing else. The world had gone quiet, except for one thought repeating endlessly in his mind. I didn't break her. She broke me. The medical team arrived within minutes, but their attention wasn't on Kira. Eli, the head medical officer, a slender amphibian with brilliant blue skin, rushed past the human entirely and went straight to Vex. He sat motionless in his command chair, staring at the deactivated pod with all three eyes unfocused. "Instructor, can you hear me?" Eli waved a scanner over his head. "His neurological patterns are showing extreme stress, possibly a breakdown. Get a transport gurney." Kira watched the scene with genuine concern. "Is he okay? I didn't mean to. I was just being honest. That really wasn't that bad compared to." "Please stop talking," Bryn said quietly, their antennae drooping. "Every word makes it worse." Thel cleared the observation gallery with a gesture, sending the gathered instructors back to their duties. The show was over. He descended to the training floor, his silver skin seeming dimmer somehow. "The rest of you, dismissed. Return to your quarters. Hell Week is postponed, pending investigation." The cadets filed out quickly, leaving only Thel, the medical team, Vex, and Kira. Eula paused at the doorway, looking back at the human with something between awe and terror, then disappeared into the corridor. "Am I in trouble?" Kira asked, her voice smaller than before. Thel regarded her for a long moment. "No. You followed all instructions, complied with all orders. The fault lies elsewhere." He glanced at Vex, who was being loaded onto a medical transport, still staring at nothing. "With those who didn't do their research." Over the next several days, the academy buzzed with rumors. Vex was placed on indefinite medical leave. The official statement cited exhaustion and recommended mental health treatment. The unofficial story, the one whispered in mess halls and training facilities across 3 floors, was much more interesting. The unbreakable instructor had been broken by a single human who thought military discipline was fun. An investigative committee reviewed the training logs. They found that Vex had escalated to lethal force parameters, that he'd ignored safety protocols, that he'd accessed restricted systems without authorization. But more damning than any of that was the simple fact buried in the report summary. He never read the complete species briefing. Earth humans, the report stated in bold text, require completely different training methodologies. Traditional pain compliance systems are not merely ineffective, but counterproductive. Recommend partnership-based training emphasizing challenge and achievement, rather than punishment and correction. Thel implemented the changes immediately. New protocols, new instructors, new everything. Kira finished Hell Week under a different instructor, a patient Aquarian named Lev, who'd actually read all the documentation. She passed easily, though Lev later admitted in his report that her definition of difficult and his definition occupied completely different universes. "I asked her to complete an endurance run," Lev wrote. "Standard 40-kilometer course with obstacles. She finished in record time, then asked if we could do it again because it was nice to stretch her legs." When I expressed surprise, she explained that her morning jog on Earth was typically 60 kilometers, through mountains. Before breakfast, I have no frame of reference for this species. Months passed. Kira graduated top of her class, her records showing excellence in every category. Combat training, strategy, tactics, leadership. Her fellow cadets respected her, though they maintained a healthy distance. Being around Kira meant constantly re-evaluating what qualified as dangerous. "It's just a training grenade," she'd said once during explosives practice. "You should see fireworks on Earth. We let children hold those." "Fireworks are weapons?" Torvak had asked, horrified. "What? No. They're for celebrations, weddings, holidays, fun stuff." "You celebrate with explosives." "Well, yeah. How else would you celebrate?" The conversation had ended there. Some things couldn't be explained, only accepted. Vex never returned to active instruction. He took a position in academy administration, filing reports and managing logistics. Safe, predictable, no contact with recruits. He attended mandatory therapy sessions where he slowly came to terms with a simple truth. The universe was bigger and stranger than his 30 years of experience had taught him. Some species didn't fit the mold. Some species had evolved under conditions so extreme that normal rules didn't apply. He saw Kira once more before her graduation. She was crossing the central plaza with a group of cadets, laughing at something Bryn had said. She noticed him, waved cheerfully, and continued on. No malice, no gloating. Just a friendly wave, like none of it had mattered. Maybe to her, it hadn't. 5 years later, Kira returned to the academy. Not as a student, as an instructor. The youngest in academy history. Thel had personally requested her, believing that humanity's unique perspective could benefit the training programs. Her first class assembled in Training Hall Omega, the same hall where Vex had fallen apart. 30 new cadets from 20 different species, all nervous, all wondering what the famous human instructor would be like. Kira stood at the front, relaxed and comfortable, just like she'd been on her first day. Welcome. I'm Instructor Kira. Over the next several months, I'm going to teach you about survival, adaptability, and mental resilience. We're not going to use pain compliance systems. We're not going to use neural feedback. Instead, I'm going to tell you stories. The cadets exchanged confused glances. Stories about growing up on Earth. About normal, everyday things that humans experience. School, family, hobbies, vacations. And you're going to learn that survival isn't about tolerating pain. It's about adapting to your environment, no matter how hostile. She activated a display showing images of Earth. A beautiful blue planet with white clouds and green continents. Peaceful looking, serene even. This is my homeworld. Looks nice, right? The cadets nodded. It's not. Let me tell you about Australian wildlife. There's this spider, right? About this big. She held her fingers apart. It's called a funnel web. Bite from one of those can kill you in 15 minutes. We find them in our houses, in our shoes, in our gardens, just everywhere. And that's not even the scary one. Torvak, who'd requested to observe the new instructor's methods, felt his mandibles go weak. He'd graduated. He'd survived combat deployments. He'd earned commendations. But listening to Kira casually describe her childhood was more terrifying than anything he'd faced in the field. Then there's the ocean, Kira continued, her smile growing. Box jellyfish, stonefish, blue-ringed octopuses, saltwater crocodiles, sharks. Oh, and the plants. We have these trees called jimpy. Touch one and the pain lasts for months. Months. People have gone mad from it. Anyway, that's just Australia. We haven't even covered the other continents yet. By the end of the first session, 3 cadets had requested transfers. By the end of the first week, Kira's class had the fastest improvement rates in academy history. Turns out, being told that your training conditions were pleasant compared to a human childhood was incredibly motivating. In his small administrative office, Vex heard the reports. He read the statistics. He saw Kira's success and felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Relief. She'd found the right path. Not his path. A better path. And she was sharing it. Teaching the next generation that strength wasn't about enduring torture. It was about facing a universe that didn't care about your survival and choosing to laugh anyway. He pulled up one final file. His own training records. 30 years of breaking spirits. He marked it for archival review, added a note recommending complete methodology revision, and closed it forever. Some lessons he'd learned hurt more than any neural feedback ever could. And sometimes, the student taught the teacher. 3 decades later, the Galactic Military Academy had transformed completely. The old methods, the pain compliance systems, the neural feedback pods, all of it had been dismantled and repurposed into museum exhibits. Students visited them on historical tours, listening in disbelief as guides explained how training used to work. They actually tortured recruits? A young Brendian cadet asked, staring at the deactivated pod behind protective glass. It wasn't considered torture back then, the guide explained. It was called discipline. But yes, by modern standards, absolutely. The change hadn't happened overnight. It took years of research, policy debates, and cultural shifts across dozens of military organizations. But the catalyst was always the same. One human instructor who'd proven that laughing in the face of adversity was more powerful than any punishment system ever designed. Kira eventually retired from active instruction after 20 years. Her legacy cemented in academy doctrine. The training programs she'd developed became standard across the galactic fleet. Partnership over punishment, challenge over compliance, adaptation over submission. Her methods produced soldiers who thought critically, acted independently, and survived impossible situations not through blind obedience, but through genuine resilience. Vex lived quietly until his final days. His name remembered not for his perfect record, but for being the instructor who learned the hardest lesson. That strength came in forms he'd never imagined. That evolution shaped species in ways textbooks couldn't capture. That sometimes the most important thing a teacher could do was admit they were wrong. On the memorial wall outside Training Hall Omega, 2 plaques hung side by side. One commemorated Instructor Vex, acknowledging his years of service and his role in transforming military education. The other honored Instructor Kira, the human who'd laughed during discipline and changed everything. Beneath Kira's plaque, someone had added an unofficial inscription, probably a former student. The Academy kept meaning to remove it, but never quite got around to it. She taught us that surviving a death world wasn't about being tough. It was about being stubborn enough to find joy even when the universe was trying to kill you, and then sharing that joy with others so they could survive too. Every year, new cadets read those words. And every year, a few brave souls requested Earth as their first deployment posting. Not because it was safe, but because after hearing the stories, after learning the methods, they wanted to see the world that had shaped such an impossible species. Most came back changed. All came back grateful they'd visited during peacetime. Because, as one cadet famously reported, Earth doesn't need defending. Earth needs a warning label.